I know it is treachery, and it's mutiny. But I must do this. Beep, beep. I have no choice. Beep, beep. Welcome back for another Star Trek episode review, and this time it's an unusual one. It's our first two-parter. And this one was actually the only way you could watch the original pilot episode, The Cage. And that is Season 1, Episode 11, The Menagerie, Part 1. In this episode, Spock has abducted Captain Pike to return him to the Talosian homeworld, and he is being court-martialed. But of course, most of this episode is clips from The Cage, the original pilot episode. Now keep in mind that this review and the nitpicks that I have following will contain spoilers. I never did review The Cage, but that was because I knew this episode would have been coming, so why do it twice? So this is actually a two-parter, so after this I will be doing part 2 the next time I do a Star Trek episode review. But I found this a little bit of an unusual one to do, mostly because we have things from the current time, the regular Star Trek episode, and things from the past, about 10 years before. Now, because they didn't actually have much material to work with at that time, they didn't need all of the actors. This was an easy episode for them to do. They had 2 weeks worth of episodes to do with this one. So it ended up being a clips episode, really. That was actually done in The Next Generation for, I believe, the final episode of Season 2. They had a limited budget at that time, so they just went with a clips episode. Now for this one, this was actually done fairly well, I thought. It was very much like a courtroom drama. It was very serious, and the acting was very well done. I was quite pleasantly surprised. All three of our main actors, William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley, were very, very good in this episode. I was quite impressed with them. Now, Jeffrey Hunter did pretty well in the pilot episode, but I found him really serious and dry. Not a very compelling character. I mean, not one that's entertaining. Not like Kirk is. Shatner isn't really known for his acting. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should say he's not really known for good acting. But in this episode, he was pretty good. He can act. I know that. Of course, it's also interesting to see Majel Barrett as number 1. She's never given a name, but she was second in command. And that is something, especially in the 1960s, to have a woman second in command. Now, going to the final episode of Star Trek, where they say a woman cannot be captain of a starship, well, that's just a load of bull, I think. Honestly, this is just a sign of the times. 1960s, yeah, they're not going to say that a woman could be captain. I think a lot of people would be upset. They can't hear that on TV. No way. But as I said, this was a fairly strong episode. A lot of the story was mainly just the courtroom drama and watching what happened to Pike and the Enterprise 10 years before. Of course, it's interesting seeing Spock as he is now, or as I should say, under Kirk, and compare him with how he was like under Pike. He seemed pretty different. And I'm going to get into that with the nitpicks right away. But first, my verdict. I give this episode a full 5 out of 5 stars. Really great stuff, and great acting by all the cast. And now, the nitpicks and the other things that I've noticed. First of all, this is kind of a small thing. They went to Starbase 11. I imagine a starbase is a space station, right? But in this case, it's on a moon of a planet. You know it's a moon because it's orbiting a planet that has rings. And this is an M-class moon. But usually you would expect it to be a space station. Now this is also the first time that a starbase is mentioned in Star Trek. Captain Pike's wheelchair is something that you wouldn't find in the 23rd century, I don't think. I mean, think about it. With the advances that we have today, it could do better than that wheelchair. All he can do is 1 beep for yes, 2 beeps for no. We have better neural interface technology today. I mean, we're more advanced than Star Trek. And Spock committing mutiny? Well, that's something we don't usually expect from him. But this will be explained in episode 2 of this 2-episode series. This is Malachi Throne's first on-screen appearance in Star Trek. He is Commodore Mendez in this episode, but he was actually the voice of the Keeper in The Cage. Now they changed the voice so that they wouldn't match. It's a much higher voice now. He also appears in The Next Generation. Spock creates a fake message from Starfleet operations. He does this by opening a panel on some machine, manipulating something inside, and then later on using colorful tapes with recorded messages. Doesn't this seem like a lot of work for something that I'm sure an iPhone could do? They really underestimated the ability of technology in the future. And McCoy says that they have no way of being able to tap into the brain, even though now in the 21st century we have the ability to read brainwaves and use those brainwaves to manipulate things. We can actually control things with our brain. But in the 23rd century, they can't? Something is wrong here. We've advanced a lot farther than they thought back in the 1960s. And the penalty for approaching Talos IV is the death penalty. That means everyone who goes there is going to be killed. Now you'd think in the 23rd century they would have abolished the death penalty for pretty much anything. I mean, just to go to this planet? Death penalty? Really? The top secret file has a few interesting things. And thanks to being able to watch this on Netflix, I can pause it and take a nice close look at it. They refer to Spock as half-Vulcan science officer Spock. Really, they are so specific about his species. You know, I would think that in Starfleet that they wouldn't be specifying the species by their title, just he is Lieutenant Commander Spock. They really don't need to specify anything else. Now they refer to the location of Talos IV as, I gotta read this, the third quadrant of Vernal Galaxy. What the hell does that mean? First of all, there are 4 quadrants. The name quadrant means something is split into 4. There's alpha, beta, gamma, and delta quadrant in the galaxy. The third quadrant, what are they talking about? And what is this Vernal Galaxy? I don't get it. And also they use all caps for a lot of things in this. And the top secret file is a hard copy. It's on paper. Now here's another one that I think is ridiculous. Starbase 11 only has 1 shuttlecraft. You would think that a starbase would have access to a warp-capable starship, not just 1 single shuttlecraft for an entire starbase? Now that is stupid. And also, the ship's library says the shuttlecraft has ion engines. Now, later in the series, we learned that ion engines are really advanced technology and Starfleet doesn't have it. Well, guess what? We have it today. And I'm surprised that the shuttlecraft has such a small supply of oxygen. Shouldn't there be something in there that would be able to convert CO2 to O2? The International Space Station recycles air and creates oxygen. They should be able to do it in the 23rd century on a shuttlecraft. And I already mentioned this. Spock is a lieutenant commander. Now they mentioned this. But I'd always thought he was a commander, a full commander, but he's not. In the recording from the pilot episode, they printed out a message on paper. They actually printed out on paper. Wow. Also in the pilot episode, after they beamed down to the planet, you could see that Spock was limping. So Leonard Nimoy must have injured his foot or his leg. And then he walked over to this singing plant, and you know what he did? He smiled. Of course, the Spock we know doesn't smile. And finally, Vina was wearing makeup. Now you see, Vina was a baby, or a really young child when the ship crashed, and she was the only survivor. So how would she know how to put on makeup? I have no idea. So what did you think of this episode? How would you compare the 2 Enterprise crews? And did you find Pike as dull as I did? Let me know in the comments section below what you thought of this episode. If you like this episode, then please give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see some more Star Trek videos, then please subscribe down below. And you can check out over there are the next and previous episodes, and down below is the playlist. Thanks for watching. Live long and prosper.